Darwin's theory of evolution. Most educated people in Europe and the Americas during the 19th century had their first full exposure to the concept of evolution through the writings of Charles Darwin. Clearly, Darwin did not invent the idea, which happened long before he was born. However, he carried out the necessary research to conclusively document that evolution occurred and then made the idea acceptable for scientists and the general public. This was not easy since the idea of evolution had been strongly associated with radical scientific and political views coming out of post-revolutionary France and, hence, was widely considered to be a threat to the established social and political order. Darwin was influenced by the observations made during his youthful voyage as a naturalist on the survey ship Beagle. On the Galapagos Islands, he noticed the slight variation that made tortoises from the different islands recognizably distinct. He also observed a whole array of unique finches, the famous Darwin's finches, that exhibited slight differences from island to island. In addition, they all appeared to resemble but differ from the common finch on the island of Ecuador, 600 miles to the east. Patterns in the distribution and similarity of organisms had an important influence on Darwin's thinking. Darwin's theory of evolution entails the following fundamental ideas. First, species change over time and space. The representatives of species living today differ from those that lived in the recent past, and populations in different geographic regions today differ slightly in form or behavior. Second, all organisms share common ancestors with other organisms. Over time, populations may diverge into different species which share a common ancestral population. This means, far enough back in time, any pair of organisms share a common ancestor. For example, humans shared a common ancestor with chimpanzees about 8 million years ago, with whales about 60 million years ago, and with kangaroos over 100 million years ago. Third, evolutionary change is gradual and slow in Darwin's view. This claim was supported by the long episodes of gradual change in organisms in the fossil record, and the fact that no naturalist had observed the sudden appearance of a new species in Darwin's time. These first three ideas were already under discussion among early and contemporaneous naturalists working on the species problem as Darwin began his research. Darwin's most original contributions were the mechanism of natural selection and copious amounts of evidence for evolutionary change from many sources, as are demonstrated in his famous book, The Origin of a Species by Means of Natural Selection, published in 1859. Darwin and his fellow naturalist Alfred Wallace independently came to the conclusion that geologically older species of life gave rise to geologically younger and different species through the process of natural selection. Generally speaking, Darwin's process of natural selection has four components. The first is variation. That is, organisms with populations exhibit individual variation in appearance and behavior involving body size, hair color, facial markings, voice properties, or number of offspring. The second is inheritance, which means some traits are inheritable and are consistently passed on from parent to offspring, whereas other traits are strongly influenced by environmental conditions, and show weak inheritability. The third is high rate of population growth. This suggests that most populations have more offspring each year than local resources can support, leading to a struggle for resources and consequently substantial mortality within each generation. The final component refers to the differential survival and reproduction among species. According to Darwin, individuals possessing traits well suited for the struggle for local resources are more likely to survive and to reproduce, passing those desirable variations on to the next generation. Some variations are helpful. For example, any variation that increases an antelope's speed can help it elude predators. Any variation that increases water retention in a desert plant will favor survival of the plant to reach maturity. Those animals and plants that survive to maturity and are able to reproduce become the parents of the next generation, passing on the favorable variations. Darwin called this process by which such favorable variations are passed from generation to generation natural selection.